Hello. Hello and welcome to this video. So as I promised in the last video that I will complete the missing operators. So this is going to be a short video. We will deal with the miscellaneous operators which I have not discussed earlier. But before that, let me revisit this program where we were discussing these getter and setters. So we had this object P which had two data members X and Y. So if you set R with a new value, then old value is hypotenuse, and then you calculate the ratio new value by old value and multiply X and Y with that. So that the R, when you return with the hypotenuse, it gets the same value as this. So what I was doing is I was trying to call this as if it's a function, but it's not a function, it's a setter. So it's different in JavaScript compared to, say, for example, C++. So what you do is you assign like this, p.r is equal to 5. So this 5 will now become new value, okay? So if you want to really see this, what I will do is console.log and I will print this new value, okay? And let's delete this extra stuff. So we have one console.log. This is object 6.js. So we run node objects 6.js, and there you go. You have 5. Okay. So with that out of the way, let's focus on what we are going to discuss in this video. So I'm not sure if I discussed the conditional operator or not, but in any case, let's go through it. Okay. So a conditional operator we have is given like this. Okay. You write a Boolean expression here and then question mark, and then you have two values separated by colon. So for example, let's say we want to compute the absolute value of x. So what we can do is we test if x is greater than 0, question mark. If it is greater than 0, that is, if the Boolean expression is true, then we return the x. So if x is positive, positive x will be returned. And if x is negative, then minus x will be returned. So this will print 5 for us. It doesn't matter what negative value you put, you'll always get the positive value of that. So that is the first operator. It is also called ternary operator. The second operator which we are going to discuss is called first defined operator. Now suppose A is undefined, B is 5, and suppose we compute something like this, okay? If A is not null and A is not defined, then return A. And if either A is null or A is undefined, then return B. Okay? That means if you look at this, then it means to say that if A is defined, and not null, then return A, else return B. So in this case, it will return B because A in our case is undefined. Now, what we can construct is we can have something like 5 pipe, 1 pipe, let's say 0 pipe, let's say minus 10. So in this case, what will happen is when you try to evaluate this logical OR expression, the entire thing is true. But when the evaluation will happen, the parser will look at 1, okay, and it will see that it is true. In that case, the entire expression will become true, but the value of y will be the first truthful value. Okay, let's say we make it 5. Then y will become 5. I need to show you by running the code. Let me comment this out. And this. Okay. So first we look at the absolute value stuff, and so that prints 5. So that is absolute value. Let's comment this out, and Let's bring this in picture. So in this case, B should be returned. Okay. So B is also 5. Now let's look at this one. Okay. So in this case, if you try to say console.log 5, sorry, Y, okay, it should print 5. It prints 5. Now suppose this first value is false and second is also false, but third is minus 10, then Y will become minus 10. Oops. Did I save or not? Why it is? Oh, it is still running object 6. Ah, I will have to run everything again to show you. So let's run this. Not object 6, but sundry ops. So 5. And then we comment this out. And then we run this. I think using 5 everywhere is not good. So sundry ops, it prints 5 twice because there are two console.log statements. And then we comment this out. Let's look at this. So we make it 5 or a different number for the sake of it. So it returns 7. Now if you make it 0, it will become minus 10. So with this, you can argue that we could use construct with pipe or rather logical OR operator to get what we are doing with first defined operator. There is a problem here. Okay. The problem is that let's look at this. Okay. Now, in this case, we may sometime want to get values like 0 or false or empty string. Okay, but in the logical OR operator, it will not return that ever. But here it is possible to do that. Okay, so for that restriction, we don't do that. The next operator we have used a bit, it is called type of operator. It prints the type of any object. So let's say we have a string s is equal to hello. So we have seen this. I'm showing you just for sake of console.log s. Okay, so not that type of it's a string. So a string is string, a symbol will be symbol, and undefined will be undefined, and so on. So in general, we don't use type of operator, but in certain cases, we need to know the type because we want to perform certain operation on type. And the problem with JavaScript, which is the case that it is a dynamically typed language, so you don't know the type because we don't specify the type in general because it is duck typing. Duck typing means whatever quacks like a duck is a duck. Okay, so if it holds an integer, if a variable holds an integer, the type is an integer. So value determines the type, but in statically typed language, for example, what we will cover TypeScript when we will cover the uh, type associated with variable will govern what value can be stored. Okay. For example, in C, you would have, if you are programmed in C, you can say int C is equal to 5. Now, when you do that, this int type governs what kind of values C can hold. It cannot hold a string anymore. Okay. It cannot hold a custom structure or union type. So that is the advantage of statically typed language, that type is known beforehand. But in JavaScript, sometimes when you need to know the type, you use type of operator for this. Next, we will see delete operator. The delete operator deletes an object property or an array element. Okay. So first, let's see an object. So x colon, let's say 10. Okay. And then we delete o.x. Now, if we see console.log, oh, so see, you will see that x is no longer there. So O has become empty. Let me comment this. Now, what if we try to get this property? So it will throw an error that X is not defined. But it is quite clear in this case, but it is not quite clear if it's an array. So we let A is equal to, let's say, 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay. And we delete, let's say, A1. So 1 will be deleted. Now, if you run this console.log, and if you print this array, we'll see what happens. So this is a whole now. Okay. 1 does not exist anymore. We can't get 1. So this becomes a sparse array if you do it with array. So if you want to look at the length of this array A, then it will report that the length is 4. The length has not changed. See? Okay, it is not a function. Okay. So that's how it works differently in case of array. Now, in certain cases, what happens is that, for example, if an object has non-configurable property, we have not studied yet non-configurable property. This is just for the sake of completeness. Then those properties cannot be deleted. Now, delete has a behavior that if it can successfully delete something, then it returns true. And if it cannot delete something, then it returns false. That is the general behavior. But if you use strict mode and you try to delete a non-configurable property or something which cannot be deleted, then that will be a syntax error. Okay. So that you have to keep in mind. Now we come to void operator. Void operator is kind of weird operator. It is not very useful. So what it does is it evaluates the operand and returns undefined. That is not very useful because it is returning undefined. And if the operand does not have a side effect, it wouldn't do anything. When you evaluate something which does not have side effect, that means it doesn't do anything. So for example, you look at this, we have a counter 0, we apply void operator to counter plus plus. So it has a side effect that counter will increase and void will return undefined. So if you call increment, it will return undefined and counter will become 1. So let's see this console.log counter. Let's give it another semicolon and another one. I like semicolons because I'm new to C++, Java, and so on. C++ and C. So you see, it returns 1. There is a value of counter. Not very useful, but practically I have never encountered void operator. Okay, it's maybe there may be some esoteric users, but I don't know. Okay, next we come to the comma operator. Now, comma operator is a funny one. Not funny, it is simple actually. So suppose you have 3 variables I, j, k, and you initialize them I is equal to 0, comma j is equal to 1, comma k is equal to 2. And you wrap them and try to get the value of this entire expression. Then the last value will be the expression value of x. So comma operator evaluates the left hand side and then return the value of the right hand side. So this comma will evaluate I is equal to 0, then this comma will evaluate j is equal to 1, this will evaluate k is equal to 2, and it will finally return 2. So if you run this, you will see that it will return 2. Okay. In some cases, comma operator can be very useful, as we will see later. So with this, I will end this video here. As I said, it will be a short video. So from the next video onwards, we are going to study arrays, and after arrays, we will study functions. So we'll see how we can create array, how we can delete an array, and what methods we can apply to an array. Okay. And we'll see various ways in which we can iterate on the array and different functions and then it uses. So with this, I will end this video. I thank you for watching the video and I'll see you in the next one. Till then, sayonara.